HelloFresh takes the guesswork and the extra hassle out of planning and preparing delicious meals for dinner. America's #1 meal kit, HelloFresh gives you over 40 recipes to choose from each week. And then your farm-fresh, pre-portioned seasonal ingredients arrive at your doorstep with simple instructions to help you feel like the master chef of your kitchen. And did you know that HelloFresh is cheaper than grocery shopping and 25% less expensive than takeout? HelloFresh has been an awesome addition to our household's dinner routine. We all get involved and cook together, following the pictured step-by-step instructions. It's a fun quality time and the meals are delicious. Give it a try and see for yourself. Go to HelloFresh.com/50havingitall and use code 50havingitall for 50% off plus free shipping. Again, to get 50% off plus free shipping, go to HelloFresh.com/50havingitall and use code 50havingitall. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Having It All, a podcast that explores the question, can we really have it all in life? My name is Matthew Bivens, and I believe that having it all means viewing life through a lens of abundance and love. You see, it's not about having anything, but instead about how we experience ourselves, other people, and life itself. In this podcast, my guests and I explore what having it all and creating your ideal life actually look like. We talk about the joy and contentment when you feel like you have it all, however it is that you define it. And we also talk about the profound and sometimes uncomfortable situations that you frequently must go through in order to create that ideal life. My goal with this podcast is that you walk away from each episode with new lessons that you can apply to your life, as well as real, raw stories of what having it all can look like. I want to spark the flame in your mind that asks, what does it look like to have it all in my life? So, with that, join me in having it all. Do you have an attachment to something or perhaps someone that has been weighing you down and acting as an obstacle in the path to your greatness? In this conversation, I talk with Kelsey Humphreys about what true success in life looks like. And she shares her personal story about how her success truly took off after coming to grips with and releasing an unhealthy attachment. If you are going through life right now with something that you feel is really weighing you down, or if you're struggling with some vices or addictions or attachments or anything like that, and you want to figure out how to let go of them, then this conversation will give you some tools to help you on that journey. Kelsey shares her personal story, and you know what? It's real and it's raw, and she exposes herself and becomes vulnerable. And I think it's through conversations like these that folks are really going to be able to relate to this message and take something away from it. So with that, let's jump right into this conversation with Kelsey. Today, I have the extreme pleasure of speaking with an entrepreneur who really helps people dial into and unlock their potential. Now, Kelsey Humphreys is a media entrepreneur and a motivational journalist, and she's on a mission to inspire and equip you for success. She is the creator of the Pursuit Planner and the author of the Amazon bestseller, Go Solo. You can catch her in-person video interviews with today's leaders like Gary Vaynerchuk, Seth Godin, the Property Brothers, Shailene Johnson, and more on her show, The Pursuit, which you can find at thepursuit.tv. Or you can learn more about Kelsey at kelseyhumphreys.com. So, without further ado, I would like to welcome to the show today, Kelsey Humphreys. Kelsey, how are you being today?
I feel like I am being awesome, and I'm excited to be with you. So thanks so much for having me today.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining me, Kelsey. And I always like to ask that question, how are you being, as opposed to how are you doing? Because I think so often we get caught up in the doing of life. Got to do this, got to do that. And we really reflect on who we are being and becoming in the process. So that's why I like to ask.
Awesome. Well, I would say doing is a lot easier, isn't it? It's a
It
lot
is.
easier to focus on just cranking stuff out and just go, go, go than it is to be. I'm learning that a lot lately. So that's
Mm.
a really cool starter question.
Awesome. Well, that's something that I was really inspired by with your stories, is that at certain points you did take a minute to reflect on who you were being and becoming. And we'll get into that in a little bit. But so about your story, aside from personally just being inspired by what you're up to, which partly includes interviewing influencers from all walks of life, which I freaking love, I really like how your story goes from you pursuing and creating your dream job to going after your dream calling. Because I think those two things are very different, the dream job and the dream calling. So will you briefly just share your story with me?
Yeah, well, that's a really cool way of putting it. I like the way you explained that. I'm very driven, and I've been a dreamer my whole life. And I have originally thought I was going to be a pop star, and in my teens, I really thought I was going to be like sort of a Sarah Bareilles type.
Yeah.
And because I was so awesome as a teenager, I didn't need any training or degree in music, but I decided to get a fallback degree in art, and which my parents loved. And I became a graphic designer. And it's funny, sometimes when you look back on your life, you can see like, what in the world was happening? What was I thinking? Why didn't anyone stop me? Because I'm such a people person, and I'm such a uh, just a mover, shaker, go do things type of person. And then
Mm.
I choose this career where I'm sitting in front of a computer screen for 8 hours a day, And so, but that was, just to make money while I worked on my music career. And was working on my music career and had my career in graphic design at the same time.
HelloFresh takes the guesswork and the extra hassle out of planning and preparing delicious meals for dinner. America's #1 meal kit, HelloFresh gives you over 40 recipes to choose from each week. And then your farm-fresh, pre-portioned seasonal ingredients arrive at your doorstep with simple instructions to help you feel like the master chef of your kitchen. And did you know that HelloFresh is cheaper than grocery shopping and 25% less expensive than takeout? HelloFresh has been an awesome addition to our household's dinner routine. We all get involved and cook together, following the pictured step-by-step instructions. It's a fun quality time, and the meals are delicious. Give it a try and see for yourself. Go to hellofresh.com/50havingitall and use code 50havingitall for 50% off plus free shipping. Again, to get 50% off plus free shipping, go to hellofresh.com/50havingitall and use code 50havingitall.
And then we moved away to this tiny little town in Arkansas. To the family kind of went in and purchased this marina on a lake in Beaver Lake, Arkansas, which we still own. It's Lost Bridge Marina. It's gorgeous there. And we moved there to run it, myself and my husband and his brother and his brother's wife. And it was just, man, it was rough. There's 400
Mm.
people in this town, and we were all very young, kind of outgoing, social, energetic people who then moved to this tiny town with nothing to do, and just trying to run this business that none of us had run a business like that before. You have over 200 tenants. We had 200 slips of boats, so you have tenants, and then just a lot of property, and it was just a lot. And so eventually we were able to move back home to Oklahoma City, which is our home base, and we have a manager that now runs that, which is much
Nice.
better.
Oh, yeah.
But in moving away and doing all that, my music career came to a screeching halt because there was no way I could be doing shows or really be doing anything out there in the boonies except for online. And that is a key turning point because I learned a lot about um, marketing and Facebook and online, and digital, and working in, back then MySpace was still a thing, and all of that online, which is what got me my agency job when we moved home. And so I worked my way up in an advertising agency and eventually became associate creative director and was working as doing a lot more marketing strategy, and I like to say on the other side of the camera, so doing directing shoots and writing scripts and all of that, which all of this was preparing me. And I loved my job, and that's something, in my book title, Go Solo, How to Quit the Job You Hate and Start a Small Business You Love, that was to sell more books. I actually loved my job. And it was actually really hard to leave my job, but
Yeah.
a huge company came to me and asked me if I would take over all of their marketing and branding. They had over 200 stores across the US, and they wanted me to take over everything, and they were willing to pay me more than my salary. And I am very driven and ambitious, and I was like, this is it. I can start my own agency and become a consultant. And so I did. And then I wrote a book about how I did that, because so many creatives have a really hard time figuring out how to go full-time freelance and
Absolutely.
really, really go from I'm a designer who's told what to do all day, every day, and I'm given projects, to all of a sudden doing everything and managing everything yourself. So that's where my book came in, Go Solo. And a key turning point in my life was when I got Barbara Corcoran to endorse that book. Barbara Corcoran is on Shark Tank.
Yes. Yeah.
And also John Acuff endorsed my book. And I think those two endorsements are what set me up to start writing for Entrepreneur Magazine and some other sites online. And then when I started writing for other sites, I had an idea to do an entrepreneurship show back before when I started writing my book, because everyone was doing podcasting. And I was like, well, I can do that. But I thought about it and I was like, that does not excite me like a talk show does, like an actual in-person talk show. So I thought, you know what? I mean, there's nothing stopping me from doing this right now. Why don't I just try it? And I told my husband, I mean, obviously it would take some investment to buy the equipment and to hire a video editor and some of those things. And I found someone here in Oklahoma City, Scott Williams. He's an entrepreneur, to shoot the pilot with me. And then I just had my pilot and my vision, just the idea. And that's what I sent off to Donald Miller, who's a New York Times bestselling author, and Crystal Payne, and Jeremy Cowart, who's a celebrity photographer. And they all live in Nashville. And my family lives in Nashville, so I had a free place to stay. So that's why I pitched to them first to kind of help with those expenses. And they all said yes, which was huge, because at that point I had no distribution. It was just me and my cameras. And so for people listening who have a dream, part of it is just getting together your idea and going for the ask, which is what I did. And at that point, after I got those big names, I then had some pretty big maybes on the table. And that's when I pitched Success Magazine. And I said, hey, I think if you guys came on as a distribution platform for me, where I will write the article and give you the video, I do it all. All I do is hand it to them when I'm done with it, and all they have to do is post it. I think I could get some of these big names. And so then they came on board, and that was it. Getting the distribution with Success Magazine was huge, because then I got, way bigger names, like Michael Hyatt was another turning point. And then Shalene Johnson was another turning point. And then after all that, Entrepreneur opened up their Entrepreneur Network, and I already wrote for them anyway. So now I have an article and video for them as well. And so it's just been a really crazy journey. To give you the timeline, I launched my book in September of 2014. And then I shot the pilot in January of 2015. And here a year later, I just sat down with Gary Vaynerchuk and Grant Cardone. I mean, some of the biggest names in entrepreneurship in 1 year. And if you had told me that, like, I'm a driven person, and I try and visualize my goals and all that stuff everyone talks about. But you guys, I would have had no idea. Like, I thought it was going to take me like 4 or 5 years to get to Gary Vee, So things can go a lot faster when you really have the courage to ask, I think. Sorry, I really talked for a long time, but I feel like it's important to know all the turns in someone's story, because the line to finding your calling is not straight. So
I am thrilled that you really went in detail on this, because I like to take notes when I'm chatting, and there's a couple of things that stood out to me. One of the big things that I just heard in your story is that you went for it. You went for it at every step of the way, from going for your music career, to going for this job at the big agency, to going solo, to going for pitching to these different the distributors. I mean, you went for it. And so it's funny, I have a list of questions. I sent you some questions before, but I always go off track. I always go off the questions, because these conversations just flow. And so has this character trait in you to just go for it and to have courage and really be fearless. Have you always had that, or is that something that you've had to cultivate?
I think my parents would say yes. I think I have always done that. I remember um, as a kid, like just starting clubs and putting on productions and um, yeah. I think that that's something that can be cultivated as a parent. If anyone's listening who's a parent, I think my parents were really good about that. And I've heard a lot of successful people say the same thing. A lot of successful people did not have that and they had to
Mm-hmm.
overcome it. But there are some successful people who had that. And I think it's huge. I mean, um, I think it can also hold us back sometimes. For example, you know, believing that I was going to be a pop star with no training, not even voice
Mm.
lessons. I mean, that kind of stuff when you're young, I want to tell young people, yeah, you can do whatever you want to do, but there's some things that you have to think about, and that is sticking with it. And if you'll notice in my journey, I didn't stick with things very long, did I? I mean, I did have my design and advertising career was a decade. With some interruptions, but that, yes, I stuck with it and I did enjoy it, and I really, and part of that is like you have to pay the bills.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but there was a lot of stopping and starting. I had different blogs. I did launch my business, and then that business that I wrote my book about and all of that, my giant client was purchased by someone else. And so then I transitioned into what I do now, which someone else would say, well, you started your business and you stopped. So it's another example of stopping and starting. So that is the downside to that type of personality. And I'm just now learning after doing my show for a year and looking for the long haul. Like, I want to be doing this show for years.
Yeah.
And what does that really mean? And when you're young and driven, you don't understand that part. And I think you suddenly reach your early 30s where I am now, and you look back and think, this is an example I give a lot, but in 2009 I started a weekly YouTube show, and it was kind of around the marina and trying to build my music career. And it was like a reality show that I produced, and it was fine. It was cutesy or whatever. But the key is I quit after 9 weeks. And you know who are mega YouTube stars now? All those like giant stars. Guess what year most of them started? 2009.
Yeah.
Now they have millions of followers. They make their money from creating things. That's the thing. There's lots of different facets to that. That wasn't my calling. That wasn't really what I was meant to do. I hadn't found my area yet. And clearly those people, that is their area, what they do, straight to camera type quirky videos. But that's the thing I would tell people who are listening, who are maybe a little bit lost, or you've stopped and started a lot, that once you find something that you love, you need to buckle in and really, put your drive in a focused, years long path, not year long path, not 18 months, but years plural.
I love that, and it sort of reminds me of some of your quick pep talks,
Yeah.
which I'm such a huge fan of. When I found those things, I just went through them, and it's this type of advice that you give in the quick pep talks. Just what some of the things that you've experienced with the successful people you have interviewed. You're really kind of giving those lessons, and so I want to talk about success right now, because it is a big part of what you talk about. It's present in your interviews on The Pursuit, and obviously in the quick pep talks. So with success being such a major topic of interest for you, I'm curious, what does success mean to you?
I saw that question in the notes you sent over, and I was thinking about it, and it is hard to for me to narrow it down because I have so many things I want to do. But I think success for me is to have a content, successful feeling in every area.
Mm.
So I am doing what I love and getting well paid for that work. And then I have a really strong marriage with my husband. We've been together since we were 16, which means, that we've already been together, 15 years, and we're only in our early 30s.
That's awesome. Wow.
So, we've had lots of ups and downs, and we have a lot more to come. So success means I still have a really strong relationship with him. Success means that I am a great mom and I have a good relationship with my daughter. And success for me means that I'm my relationship with the Lord. I'm a Christian, so that's important that that's in place and that that's first, and that I'm you know still making time to pray every day and actually like check myself and make sure that because anyone who is really driven and who loves to be in front of the camera or on stage, we have to deal with ego every day.
Oh yeah.
And
Oh yeah.
so part of success for me would be making sure that I still have my lifelong friends and I'm not too big for my britches. And um, but I think a lot of people tend to think about one area of life with success, and that's something I really learned from Chalene Johnson. Is that real, true success goes in every area of your life,
Mm-hmm.
and health as well. That I'm healthy, that I'm sober. We can talk about that. I'm sure that'll come up. All of these different areas of life that I feel like I'm at a 9 out of 10 or an 8 out of 10 in every area. I think that's what success means for me.
Oh, I love that. That completely resonated with me. There's this idea. It's the 6 Fs, and the Fs are faith, family, fitness, friends, finance, and fun. And you basically hit all of those in what you define as success, and that's feeling whole, feeling complete, feeling healthy in all those different areas. And I couldn't agree more. I tend to think that there's two kinds of success. There's the success with a little s and success with a big S. And the success with a little s is what the external the external view of success, or the picture of success, is the house, it's the title, it's the money, it's the bank accounts, it's the luxury vacations. And that's unfortunately what I think a lot of what success in our society is put out there as. However, I believe that the true success is kind of what you described with that capital S, and that's how you feel as an individual. Or do you feel whole and complete and loved and healthy in all those different areas? And yeah, man, I love that you said that.
Yeah, and that's something that I learned over time. I mean, I think it's easy to get distracted, like you said, by the little s, and then as you start to dig deeper, you realize that you can't really have true success without all the other parts.
Yeah, yeah, and it makes me think of this idea that anything is everything, right? So kind of like what you said, you can't just be successful, quote unquote, in one of those areas and not successful, quote unquote, in those other areas, because you are you, and what you bring to the table in one area, you're bringing that in the other areas as well. So how you show up in your marriage is inevitably going to be how you show up with your business, which will be how you show up with your friends. And so when we think of success as this holistic sense, then we want to make sure that we're checking in on all these different areas and just seeing how we show up and how we feel about all those different areas, because we bring our whole selves whenever we do anything.
I do think though that, and this is another thing from Chalene, you have to give yourself seasons and give yourself a little grace. Like right now, I'm not a great friend. I mean, just being honest, I'm not a great friend. I work hard all the time. And even though I have my child, like I work from home, but I have my kid in full-time daycare and she's little. And so there are days I feel like a terrible mom. So, but I'm working towards reorganizing my life over time where we have a lot more freedom and I'm not working the way I'm working now, but this is a season.
Absolutely.
And so, I think a lot of people who are maybe listening to this who are not quite there yet to hear, well, I have to be well-rounded in every single area. Start with your heart, start with maybe your heart and your health and maybe, finances so that you can pay your bills, but you can give yourself seasons and give yourself some grace. But the goal of success is to have, a 9 out of 10 in all of those areas. But the reality is we have to start where we can and work our way there.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm happy you said that, because it makes me think of this idea of balance. And I think a lot of folks believe that, balance is having that sort of equilibrium in all states, all at the same level, all at the same time. And what you're saying is, we do go through seasons. We go through times when we put a little bit more time and energy into our career, and that means a little bit less in some of the other areas. And then we sort of pivot and we shift some of our energy over into a different area. And it's this it's more of a counterbalance. It's
Mm-hmm.
more of this, oh, I haven't reached out to friends in a while. Let me go put some of my attention over here. Oh, my husband, he and I haven't had a date in a little while, so let me make sure I go put some love over here. And it's just constantly being aware and, being flexible and counterbalancing. And so I'm happy you brought that up.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Wonderful. Well, let's you did mention something when we talked about success, and it was on one of my questions. I want to jump into this because you had one of your quick pep talk videos, and it was called "It's Time to Come Clean About My Success."
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty sure you know which one I'm talking
Mm-hmm.
about.
Mm-hmm.
In that video, you really talk about a decision that you made, a fear that you confronted, and how that changed everything for you. Can you talk about what that decision was?
Yes. Okay. This is huge. It's a huge, and you're the first person that I've really sat down and talked about this with.
Wow.
But I mean, in a public
Yeah.
forum,
Yeah.
obviously, I've talked in my personal life, but so I think that a lot of times with success, there's a song that's based on an analogy, and she says you can't run when you're holding suitcases, and
Mm,
of course, by suitcases, she's talking about baggage.
yeah.
And some baggage I had for me, I told you about earlier on in my story, when we went to Arkansas and we were there in this tiny town. And, I hated that time of life. It was really hard. And that's when I went from drinking, like someone would, drink at parties or drinking casually, to drinking as an escape, drinking as a way out, drinking as a problem. Drinking became a problem for me. Um, and then I, remember, then we went back home and I had a really great job. And so I think in our lives there are a lot of high functioning people who are really dysfunctional on the inside,
Mm,
and that's what I was for many years. And then finally, it was right before Barbara Corcoran endorsed my book, actually, and right before my book launch, I just realized that I was not going to be able to run if I was holding on to that suitcase. I was not going to be able to do the calling that I felt was placed on my life. I believe in God. I believe God was not going to bless what I was doing unless I let that go finally and completely.
mm,
And so that's what I had to do. And it was not easy. And my quick pep talk was at the beginning of the year. And I really wanted to talk to people who, maybe have success in, to an extent in every other area of their life. They have a job they love, they have a family they love, but they're just not, they can't get over this hump. They've had their New Year's resolution for years has been to give up drinking or to give up whatever. Maybe
yeah.
it's an affair or a food addiction or an eating disorder or whatever it is. For me, it was alcohol. And January after January, I would say, okay, I'm not going to drink anymore. This year I'm giving it up. And I would always fail. And so, I just want people to know that for two things, if you are that person, you absolutely, totally can get rid of that. And when you do, amazing things will happen in your
Mm,
life because you don't realize how much it's holding you down until you let it go. And it was a tether, and I cut that tie and my life just exploded to new heights. I mean, the timeline right after that was my book launch. Right after that, Barbara Corcoran came on. Right after, I mean, it's just like boom, 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 boom. So if you are listening today and you are holding on to some deep, heavy baggage, whether or not anyone else in your life knows, I want to tell you today that you can let go of it. If I can, 8 years later of drinking, I think it was, I don't know, I mean, since I was 21, I guess. And I can let go, you can let go. And once you do, it will be so worth it. And then the other thing I want to tell people is that so many people in our lives have deep hidden, hurts that we don't know about, and deep hidden dysfunctional things. And so I just hope that we, are maybe gracious and maybe, give each other a little grace, give each other some compassion and understanding. And that, what's that old quote, everyone is fighting a hidden battle or something. That,
mm,
I
mm.
think that's really true. And so yeah, I'm like the poster child for like what can happen when you finally give it up. Like when you finally like, okay, that's it. I cannot do this anymore. I realize this is holding me back from my purpose. I mean, it's amazing. Look at the last year of my life. I just thank God and I give him, I'm so thankful that he helped me to get through it. And I hope that anyone listening who has one of those things will do it too. Will give it up.
Wow. Well, Kelsey, thank you for allowing yourself to be vulnerable and share that, because I absolutely agree with you that there are people out there who are going to be listening to this and just nodding their head, probably with tears in their eyes, because they realize that there is a fear, there is something weighing them down. And what you're saying is, when you let go of that, what is on the other side of that fear is so sweet and amazing and unbelievable that it's time to walk through. And I personally have experienced that as well, where just confronting a fear and moving through it, you just can't imagine what the feeling is like on the other side. So that's powerful. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah. And I also want to just add that, I don't want it to sound like it's easy, because it's not easy. But what you said, it is sweet. And I always come back to, it won't be easy, but it will be so worth it. Because the first few months, giving up an addiction or, or ending an affair or overcoming an eating disorder or something, huge, deep issues that you have in your life, or maybe repairing a relationship where you have to go to counseling. I mean, if you really think about it, that is hard. That is some gritty work, but it is worth it. That's, I don't want to make it sound like it's all sunshine and lollipops, but it is worth it, is what I want people to hear. So
yeah, it reminds me of sort of this picture that I was told at one point. Like, let's imagine you have a dirty stovetop, right? And you pull out the bottle of cleaner and you spray it. When you spray that dirty stovetop, it gets dirtier. It looks messier, it looks mucky. And then once you actually break that stuff up, you can clean it away a lot easier. So it's like, let's look at the stuff, let's go into the closet. Let's kind of dig into really what's going on internally. And it's going to look messier. It's going to feel messier. It's going to be challenging, incredibly difficult. But once you're able to look at it, then it can be managed and it can be healed. And that's what your words reminded me of.
Yeah, exactly.
Wonderful. Well, I want to shift real quick, and I think this is a great segue into talking about habits of just self-love. So one of my favorite books ever is The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey, and in that book he talks about this quote of, you sow a thought, you reap an action, sow an action, reap a habit, sow a habit, reap a character, and sow a character, reap destiny. So my question for you is, what are some of the habits of health and self-love that you practice regularly?
Okay, this is kind of weird, but I love to swing like on a swing set.
Oh,
okay,
man.
Which is weird, but
That's awesome.
I really enjoy it. And so one of the things for me, I know that exercise is important. And so I will run in my neighborhood to where the swing set is. That's a mile. Or I'll bike around the neighborhood and then end up there, because that is a real joy for me. Like, I have my music on, it's cranked, and we have a really nice park in our neighborhood. And I try and go when there aren't any children, so that I'm not like the weird creeper adult on the swings. But that is something, that's weird, and people will be like, what? But that for me is really, it's just like me time. Like, I just go there and I've got my music cranked. Sometimes I pray, sometimes I'll try and listen to a podcast, or whatever I want to do at that time. But it's just like, there's a childlike freedom to that that I just love. And I'm pretty blessed here in Oklahoma that we have pretty mild weather a lot of the time. And so, I mean, I go when it's cold too, and then, it's cold, but I still enjoy it. But a lot of times, it's mild weather, it's sunny, or, there's birds chirping. I mean, it's just to be outdoors, which a lot of people talk about. But, that I think that there's one thing I like to always bring up, is that sometimes people don't want to get weird for their dreams. And one example would be someone I interviewed, Jamie McGuire. She's a best-selling author. She writes romance novels, but she writes overnight. She
Huh.
sleeps while her kids are at school. She has a little bit of time with them in the mornings and evenings, But, in the morning she'll see them for a little bit and then she goes to bed. She sleeps during the day. Then they get home from school. She wakes up, they have family time, and then she works overnight
Oh,
because it's
wow.
quiet
Yeah, yeah.
and she can write and she has zero distractions. There's no one on social media. There's
Mm-hmm.
no one calling. That is super weird, right? That is weird. Like, I can't imagine what the people in her life when she started doing that, and they were probably like, oh yeah, well, she's working on her quote unquote novel.
Yeah.
And so she works overnight. Like, can't you see people making snide comments?
Absolutely.
But she, that was a weird thing for her. That was worth it. And, it's weird for me to like pack up my cameras and stuff in a carry-on and go by myself to like these cities, like my friends, it's weird what I'm doing. And then obviously singing on the swings is weird. But for me, I would say that's a self-love habit. And then I also am really good about sleep. I get 7 or 8 hours of sleep every night.
Nice.
And I really try and shut down in the evenings as much as I can. And yeah, I think that's probably it. Exercise. And um, I'm not, you had on your list a question about what I'm working on currently or one place where I'm kind of stuck. And that for me would be health in terms of, I mean, I do exercise, but I know that I need to work on my nutrition and I'm never drinking enough water. So I'm looking into getting like a personal trainer or a dietitian or someone to help me. That is someplace that I am super stuck and I have really bad old habits that just I can't give up, M&Ms and so that's one place where I would need help, but because I think a lot of people would spend this time talking about like how they eat healthy and I don't.
Hey, you're just being real.
Yeah.
You're sharing that habits are habits, and there's some that help raise your health, and you mentioned those the me time, the play,
Mm-hmm.
the sleep. But there are also habits we have that bring our health down a little bit, and that could be some eating habits or exercise habits, and just kind of like with the other stuff. Once you're aware of it and you know that it's a goal, now it can be addressed. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that's great that you shared that also. So we've been talking. I think we only went through a couple of questions, but man, this was a great conversation.
Yeah, sorry, I'm long-winded, I guess.
Oh no, I love these types of conversations. I really do. The questions are there because I like the questions. I think they're solid. But when we go off and we kind of go down a tangent and through another trail in the woods, it's always beautiful. So I appreciate you kind of rolling with me on that.
Mm-hmm.
I do have a couple of last questions for you, Kelsey.
Mm-hmm.
What's the best advice that you have ever received?
This is another question I stared at, and I just, I mean, you just have to give me some grace because of the amount of people that I've gotten to sit down with. I mean, every interview, I'm like, that's the best thing I've ever heard,
Oh yeah.
So I can't answer that. I don't know. I mean, there's so many good tidbits out there. Um, I don't know. I don't know.
If I said to you, Kelsey, I'm really interested in that success with a big S. I
Mm-hmm.
want to feel like my life is full, is rich, is full of love and meaning. What can I do? What can I do to feel that?
You know what? Take inventory. That's something that everyone, probably most of the people I've interviewed have talked about. And it's something that people don't think about doing, but to actually sit and write out the areas of your life and how you're doing in those areas and which ones need improvement. I think that is huge. And, Gary Vee talks about self-awareness. Well, that's one way to get there is to take inventory. And Chalene Johnson talks about, I mentioned her in full life success. That's what she says to do first. Sit down and actually take an inventory, list out, you mentioned the F's. So list out each one and then actually sit and write out the inventory of how you're doing in those areas. And one place where people struggle, I know, is how to figure out what I'm really meant to do. I know that's a big one people are
Mm-hmm.
probably wondering. And my best advice for that would be to write out, again, this is an inventory exercise, but all the things that you've loved. And this has been in, said various ways in different books that I've read and people I've interviewed, but I call it to find a common thread in all the things that you've loved. Like what I'm doing now, there was a little bit of that in music. There was a little bit of that in advertising. There was a little bit of that in, in entrepreneurship for sure, because I'm still, an entrepreneur. And in writing and being an author and public speaking, all the different things I do now, I can see these common threads that sort of led to what I'm doing now. But you have to actually write it out and see, okay, you know what? I realized that all of the things that I loved about those different jobs or those different careers or that specific project, it was actually organizing everyone. I liked doing the organizational part. Then you realize, hey, maybe I need to try and move into a managerial position, or maybe I need to start consulting, on business organization. But the first step is to try and find that common thread, and that will really then just take action. That's something Marie Forleo talks about. Once you've got kind of an idea, just start going. And that's something I guess I've been pretty good about in my life, is that I just take action. And if you get stuck, or if you realize, this is not it for me, just keep moving. You just turn left. You don't stop. And then you'll find it. You will find your sweet spot for sure. And I know that's a big question for a lot of people, but you can find it.
Oof. No, that was powerful advice. I love it. I love it. Awesome. So as we come to a close here, is there anything that you would like to talk about, inform our listeners about?
Yes, I would like to tell people that The Pursuit, and I have 2 podcasts that are actually up on iTunes now. And The Pursuit is a video talk show. And so what we've done is we've taken the audio and we've put that out as a podcast. And then I also have a second podcast that's based on my quick pep talks. So just search my name, Kelsey Humphreys, and you'll see both of those. And that way, if you are a podcast listener, obviously this is a podcast, so you will probably like that format a little bit better than my videos. But, if you ever want more, then you can go watch the video version. But now that everything's actually up on iTunes, which has been a long process for me, I want everyone to go check them out.
Awesome. So they can check out both of these upcoming shows by just simply searching Kelsey Humphreys in the search bar. And if they wanted to go and learn more about you and about what you do, watch some of your videos, where can they go for that?
The best thing to do is kelseyhumphreys.com. I put out daily videos. I put out weekly articles, weekly videos, weekly newsletter, and the newsletter has it all in one place. So you can find me on Periscope, you can find me on Twitter, you can find me on Facebook, but the best place would probably be to go to kelseyhumphreys.com and opt in. And then you can see when you get the first weekly email, you can kind of gauge if you like my content or not. And if you want to get it once a week. And then for social media, I am most active on Facebook. So that's facebook.com/Kelsey Humphreys. And we have a great community of people who comment on videos, and I post a lot, and we just have a lot of fun. It's a little more relaxed and humorous side of things versus, just super business achievement, success. The Facebook is a little bit more fun.
Awesome. And I will have links to all of this stuff in the show notes for everyone listening. So you'll be able to check out all of Kelsey's amazing stuff. Kelsey, this was a really fun conversation. And I just want to say thank you so much for just carving out some time to come over here and chat with me.
Yeah, Matthew, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Wonderful. Two quick things before you leave. First, did you know that the Having It All podcast is a part of the Fireside Network? Yep, that's right. We are one of the shows that calls Fireside Network home. That means if you ever want to listen to a show outside of iTunes or Stitcher or whatever your favorite podcasting app is, all you have to do is visit www.firesidenetwork.com/having it all. From there, you can access all of the episodes, see the show notes, learn about my guests, and more. Second, we also have a standalone website for Having It All, where you can learn about me, discover how we further our mission at Having It All, and pick up some free content around creating your ideal life and just experiencing life more powerfully. You can find that at www.havingitall.co. Again, that's www.havingitall.co. Thanks again for listening to the show. Here's to you having it all.